Welcome to Digiryte's podcast series. Today we have an esteemed guest, Robert Perman, who is an established industry leader working across multiple industry verticals the last 3 decades in London mostly. Accounting, financial services, change management, digital transformation, AI strategy, you name it. And also in terms of business verticals, he's worked with all major banks like Deutsche, Barclays, and Royal Bank of Scotland. And also in terms of consulting firms, he's worked with KPMG, PwC, and Grant Thornton, to mention a few. We are extremely privileged to have him at our podcast today. Robert, great to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Bhaskar.
Sure. And so I'm a surgeon, moved into tech the last kind of 8-9 years. So, and I have my great team here. I want to introduce Ramesh. Why don't you introduce yourself, and then Karthik there afterwards?
Yeah, sure, Bhaskar. So I'm acting as a field CTO now, more of customer touchpoint guy. So providing them a consultation. So it's quite exciting to have Robert here, so I would like to pick up his brain on today on how the convergence of technology, strategy, and finance will be. That's quite unique combinations. So leave it to Karthik.
Yeah, so myself, I'm the CTO of Digiryte, mostly handling the technology delivery part of it. So my background is, I was a AWS architect. So now I'm mostly shifting towards the AI and agentic AI part of it. I'm also learning the architecture and the implementation. So we have done a lot of workflow automations in the admin side of Digiryte and for the client as well. Yeah, specialized in various things, but yeah, we'll talk more in the podcast.
Yeah. So we are trying to achieve, we've been discussing about Robert, right? In the last couple of years, we've been thinking about the first $1 billion valued one employee company is going to come. And it's already exists. Open Cloud, few other companies, it's already coming in the picture. I think, are we part of that growth is something, which we constantly chasing as well. So we're actually building a disruptive, innovative product currently. So we just had a client. He's a big celebrity fitness trainer from northwest of England. So we are actually building an operating system for the human. So I think obviously we have Dr. Bhaskar, on the illness side. So we are just quite more into wellness side in the last few months of building the product. So it's quite exciting.
So you're already contributing and building a unicorn.
Yeah, obviously. So we are also working with the Salford City Council now. We started to bridge the gap between Silicon Valley and Salford.
Yeah.
So because the idea around it is, instead of we trying to teach the digital skills for people, those who are not interested, why can't we target the bottom of the funnel, the business owners, with the niche, professional skill sets in various domains, and work with them to build AI SaaS, or helping them to expand their market share by taking this AI. The professional services, manufacturing companies can grow faster. They can add embed AI into their existing, products, physical products, IoTs. Because the implementation time has been drastically reduced, number of headcount required to deliver this AI solutions is reduced, and we can also promise the outcome-based model sometimes if that has a hyper growth opportunity. So, these are all something which we do now, and it's quite exciting.
So one thing you can say is maybe along the way. So sometimes, obviously, let's say from your perspective or the roles you play, giving this roadmap, so business strategy and AI and digital transformation strategy, etc. And sometimes maybe you can share out of that, and then what is the outcome of your strategy, what happened. So let's say how many organizations followed it through, maybe as a rough thing. So, and then sometimes what are the learning points if they didn't get get it through deploying the complete roadmap, and then what were the challenges that what you picked it up from your reflection or the feedback, following it up from those organizations. So maybe just pointing it out. So strategy point is one thing, and then I think how many get to reach the success or anticipated success. So how many do not reach there? And then out of those people or organizations which do not reach the outcomes which was desired, what are the kind of broad reasons and so on? So let's say it could be implementation partner or someone which there's a bit of a gap. So maybe that would say, so maybe subtly positioning, oh, this is as a good combination. We are kind of have this as a...
Okay, but I think what I would say is, so fortunately or unfortunately, I've always been involved in transformations, probably in year 2, where there have been problems. So, you know, typically I have a sort of a diagnostic approach coming into the organization and understand, you know, where things sort of immediately, it's my role to immediately understand where things are not working.
Okay, wow, that's good.
And then to map out a path to stabilizing the program and actually securing the outcome. So whether that's value or some other aspect that's aligned to the business or a function. So that's where I've typically come into a transformation. But I have also started transformations where previously the organization has failed to actually mobilize the transformation. So I think generally in transformations, the organizations approach things with a project mindset, but don't actually understand that strategic thinking is required and systems thinking is required. And actually a connection to operations is required. And I think just in a nutshell, that's where organizations tend to slip up. So firstly, at a high level, there is a sort of business intent, a strategic intent, but that doesn't get necessarily translated down to the program level. And then the program doesn't actually embed that intent in a structure within the program. So everyone on a project level and a program level, most people are familiar with what the structure should look like, setting up a work stream, but actually you need to go back before that and connect the organization to the transformation. And quite often that connection just isn't there. So you have a document, a business case, and then someone is translating that into the program, and it's just not a complete process. So quite often that's where the program fails. And you need to have that consistent agile leadership mindset within a program where you're constantly adapting to the realities of the program at scale. And working with people. So collaboration is a major theme as well, that simply, you know, it doesn't happen, and quite often you still have very strong-minded individuals with a vision of what they think the program should do, but actually everyone should be really working together.
So getting this alignment right, realignment, course correction. So
I think even in the C-suite, I've worked on transformation programs where there wasn't alignment in the C-suite to begin with, and I think that's a key theme now that's playing out. That actually CFO Tech have mentioned, you know, their statistic is that 70% of C-suites don't produce the alignment that's needed between strategy and business strategy and AI strategy. So misalignment is a major factor at the top of the organization and then at the program level.
So that's a very interesting fact. Almost 70%.
I think it's really important because when when you're considering this, organizations now have to have a strategic portfolio for change, and particularly with AI, because AI moves you into the domain of continuous improvement, continuous change, and feedback, and having this one-off approach to change, just that's no longer the case. Once you're into the AI domain, you're moving forward with technology at a rapid pace.
Yeah.
So how do you address the C-suite leaders when you engage with them to have this kind of a bit more a longer-term approach for these initiatives to get through, and having that patience? Obviously, sometimes they have a lot of other pressures from obviously capital spending, so other factors like disruptors around them, competitors, so digital changes, geopolitical, economical changes as well. So obviously they need to operate with all these kind of significant constraints around them, and still they have a lot of pressure in terms of to deliver the value for their stakeholders and shareholders. So how would you approach them or advise them or get them on board when you engage with them?
I think so. One of the key factors, so within a successful organization, I think it's increasingly the case that you need to have a degree of psychological safety and healthy tension. So the idea of executives challenging each other, and then framing that in terms of the decisions that they then make is very important. You need to have that. It's essentially like the collaborative style of leadership for transformation programs, rather than working in silos, which quite often C-suite leaders do. They have their domain, and they have they own a part of the corporate mission. And they have a team behind them. Sometimes they're too protective of their own silos. And I think it's necessary to actually then, they need to work together as a team and become problem solvers. And with AI, I think they also need to, there are two modes, I think, for C-suite leaders. One is the decision making, and then the other is the imaginative creativity angle, which they need to have. So they need to be able to so they obviously understand strategy, and they're not short of ideas, but the ideas, the catalyst for change comes when those ideas come together, and they make decisions, and they bring their different perspectives together, and then through the decisions they're able to shape how the organization will move forward in the future. And then that becomes the basis for the strategic portfolio and the strategic roadmap that underpins that. And then once you've done that, you have you can develop an approach to how you're going to integrate AI into the organization. So AI no longer becomes this this impenetrable wall or this black box that you know that you've got to do something with it, but you don't know where to start. And I think what I've seen is, everyone is talking about use cases for AI, but actually a use case doesn't get you very far. If you really have a lot of use cases work well at the bottom, so you just go through proof of concept, MVP. You need to do that at least once, so you understand what the challenges are within the organization to actually productionize AI. But importantly, AI needs to be driven from the top of the organization as well.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. So because the cycle from the decision and planning, designing and deploying, and then refining, fine-tuning, and then obviously it's a kind of continuous evolution from where we start, and then getting everyone on board to follow that through, and having that kind of buy-in from all the key stakeholders within the organization is quite important in that aspect, to make at least to get high level of success in implementing a solution of one particular vertical. Yeah. Obviously, going back to the Carter's change management 8 pillars, so you have obviously start with the problem, and then you need to see buy-in from all the key stakeholders, and then at least recognizing what the challenge is, and then what are the solutions. And if you take that full approach in terms of designing and implementing, and then closely monitoring, and then continuously learning from that. So again, the question here is, having that right approach from the C-level team would give a lot more confidence who are in the mid-level, who are in charge, who are running the show on a day-to-day basis, without that kind of pressure on them. That would definitely increase the chances of achieving the desired results and outcomes.
I think that also solves the problem of organizations getting stuck at the experimentation stage, because that's the key. That's a key problem right now, that organizations are actually spending a lot of time and resource just running a lot of different experiments, and how many of those actually scale up. You need to actually have a narrow focus on your path to getting that solution into production, and whether you call that typically there's an innovation pipeline approach where it's very structured, and there's prioritization around the concepts that you want to then apply investment to, create sort of mini projects, proof of concept. But it's a very filtered approach, and it gives you much greater chance of success of actually getting to the point where you have a product or a service that you can then scale up to enterprise level, and then perhaps if it's a B2B or B2C service, you can then deploy that service, and then you've got access to a new market that that didn't exist before.
So the AI is just reducing the human friction, or AI can deliver outcome, or both? How do you feel it for any mid-market or larger organization in terms of when they try to implement AI strategy? So the perception of the C-level leaders should be on reducing the human friction, make it easier, improve the speed, or some processes can be completely redefined to deliver the outcome by AI itself. Maybe we are moving to agentic as well, agentic world.
Yes.
Where agents can do most of the work.
Yes, so I think that sort of borders on a misconception around AI, because leaders are thinking, okay, if I use AI within my organization, it's another layer of automation, which is actually which increases the effectiveness of the organization. So therefore I can just I can shed staff and lower costs. But actually AI, I think, should be seen in terms of the organization. I think the starting point is not the technology itself, but it's actually where you're going to drive value using AI. So, and I think that comes back to the different organizations that we're faced with. So you have corporates where they're very large, they're already at scale, and they have problems with the rapid advance of AI is actually speeding up cycles of innovation and access to markets. And the fear of a corporate is, my competitor is going to use AI and gain those advantages, and those are advantages that will give them a step change lead over me, over over my organization. So, so that's the concern. So how do they address that? A lot of corporates focus on their existing systems and driving out costs and improving productivity. That's the first stage. But the second stage is really to make sure that they understand where they're generating value. So in that sense, they're in that second stage for the corporate. They're in the same position as a venture capital firm or a PE firm. They're actually then focusing down on critical areas where they're generating value and using AI to actually increase and sustain that value over time. I think of it a bit like, you're walking through the forest, you find a lake, and you've got a bucket in your hand, and you're trying to empty that lake with a bucket. That's the situation we were in before AI. With AI, you arrive at the lake, you spend some money, you have a pump with a flexible hose that you put into the lake, and then you can direct that water anywhere you like. And if you want to invest a bit more money, you can put a Formula One engine on that pump, and you can empty that lake in a short period of time and then move on to the next lake. Whilst someone who doesn't do that, they're still trying to use the bucket. So I think that's a helpful analogy for AI.
Absolutely a great analogy.
AI is very, it's a very positive new technology. But I think the headlines we get are, okay, there are going to be a lot of job losses and so on. But I think, organizations need to reskill their workforce, redeploy them. And that whole cycle of redeploying is the same for all the other resources they have. Once you have a product that is mature in the marketplace, there's the actual profit you generate is a lot lower. You want to move on to the next product. And AI will enable you to do that. So that's my sort of analogy with the lake. That's like having a product, you've got access to a market, you can extract the profit very quickly, then move on to another lake. So the idea of value and markets, it gives you much more agility and speed to...
So maybe my next question is now, obviously, even if the C-suite is fully driven to design the AI policy and then implement as soon as possible, again, there is a bit of apprehension in the rest of the workforce about, as you mentioned, the job losses, etc. So, in your opinion, so far, you interacted with so many big enterprise and C-suite leaders. So, how many of them take this equally important aspect to get everyone on board and educating them, as well as say they will be definitely retained, and then where they will still continue to offer value to the organization at a higher level and improving the overall efficiency of the organization. So what percentage of organizations take that approach in terms of interacting with the complete workforce and bringing them on board and then giving them reassurance, let's work together so you're not going to be losing your job. You'll be still contributing and adding value to our company in a different way. So have you seen any kind of shift or approach in that aspect? So that's one of the key apprehensions, isn't it? So even though like if your C-level makes a decision and if the rest of them are having their own personal level of perspectives, in a way, how that's going to impact them or their career. So there's going to be a bit of a delay between what the enterprise want to achieve and what the rest of the workforce is feeling about implementing AIs.
I think it depends on the industry and the size of the organization.
Okay.
So, for example, if you take BP as an example, they're faced with, so there's the energy transition, which is a big, that's a major theme playing out in the industry. So that's affecting all the players in the energy industry, and BP is a major organization. They're faced with significant complexity because of the energy transition, and it's also a very capital intensive industry.
Yep.
So that sort of limits the decisions they can make. And certainly with BP, we saw initially with Bernard Looney, they were focusing on, they said they were allocating a lot of capital to renewables, and then they reversed that decision and said, okay, so they were reducing their spend on extractive hydrocarbon, oil and gas.
Yep.
And since then, they reversed that decision and said, actually, we're going to increase production of oil and gas, and we're going to reduce our investment in renewables. So within large organizations, you do have that shift.
Yeah.
But in the key issue for BP is the cost base.
Yeah.
They have a long capital horizon, so it takes 10, 15 years to bring on stream major capital investment. So that you can compare that with a sort of with a venture capital firm that's delivering an innovation. They have to get to market very quickly to survive.
Yeah.
So the decision making is slightly different, but I think typically, so the leadership style is different, and the factors that the industry is facing also influence how the decisions are made, and what the priorities are.
Yeah.
So with AI, what I've seen is that those organizations do move down the path of AI to integrate their operations, to drive efficiencies, to reduce costs. And with their workforce, they do shed jobs, but I think they also try and reskill the workforce.
Okay.
But I think often those decisions are made too quickly.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we see with Accenture, for example.
Yeah.
With Accenture, suddenly they announced that they were shedding 22,000 staff because they felt they weren't able to grasp AI or contribute to the sort of overall AI mandate. And I think sometimes those decisions are made far too quickly, because with AI, I think as we're seeing with AI, it's going to take a few more years for AI to mature, and for organizations for the AI environment as a whole to develop.
Yeah. Okay.
Does that answer your?
Obviously, it's a kind of a spectrum. There's so much of variation within that, and then there are multiple factors coming into play. How to balance all those things, and kind of what kind of trade-offs you want to make at a given point of time. So,
but also with the C-suite, it comes back to this idea of siloed leadership.
Yeah.
So quite often you might get, because of the tension there, that might also lead to layoffs, because sometimes technology is used as an excuse to lay off people.
Yeah. I think I have said that. I think I've read recently many of these organizations which laid off so many employees, and suddenly after their AI deployment cycle, they still found they need more resources to kind of get the better out of the deployed AI solutions. We need more skilled human forces to come in. I think that seems to be another trend that is evolving as well. So that is kind of quite reassuring in a way. So
I think that's exactly right, because I think this with AI, there's this perception that AI is going to replace people, and especially with agentic AI. But actually, at the end of the day, you're creating a new system. So I think you need to take an overall systems view, including the people that you're going to include in the new system. And you've got the transition from one system to a new system. So that's why I think in a lot of cases, a rash decision is made because perhaps senior executives, they need to show that they're actually bringing a degree of value for money to the picture. So
when it comes to the implementation of the AI, what do you think the mid-market hyper-growth any companies CISO, what do you think they need to fear? They need to fear of the cost of the human side of it, or they need to fear of the implementation side of it? I mean, the cost they incur in terms of the amount of people involved in that process to define where AI can exactly give them, the value creation part of it, considering all the implementation process start to end. I think time equal to money. So every resources involved in that process is also costing the company during the process of defining to execution and delivering the value. In this process, any mid-market hyper-growth companies, CEOs or any CISOs, CFOs, they need to focus more on the calculating the cost of it, or they just need to focus more on the change management side, the human side of the transformation, AI transformation, adoption.
I think a key aspect is understanding the unit economics of AI. The unit economics need to make sense. So, what is the lifetime value of the product or the service over the cost of acquiring a new customer? With AI, I think each firm needs to take an individual. They need to decide what their focus is going to be, and whether the trade-off between, whether the cost versus investment, and the return. Well, basically, it comes down to return on investment. If they think that the return on investment for AI, the return on investment has to be higher than the capital they're investing, otherwise it doesn't make sense. But I think you're right that actually the economics of AI are not yet fully understood, and I think that's going to be important on a case-by-case basis with each organization. So a lot of that will be a function of how the organization operates, how complex is the value chain of the organization, and what are the challenges that the organization faces. But I think it also, a key factor in all of the conversations we're having today is how forward-thinking is the organization, and what is their time horizon? Are they thinking short-term? Are they thinking long-term? Investors place a lot of pressure on organizations to demonstrate that they are creating sustainable value, both in the sort of typically in a 3-month quarterly horizon. With AI is an investment for the future. So I think that's important. Nobody really understands the full economics of AI. There are some very mature organizations. I think MasterCard, Visa, they've been investing in AI for the last 15 years because they use AI to manage a fraud risk, for example. And that's a fairly standard use case. It's complex, but it's standard. I think for other organizations, that use case is still not, they need to crystallize what is the core, where are they generating the core value in their business? What is the risk to generating that core value in their business. And if the risk is far greater than the value they're generating, like in the case of MasterCard, then it's a no-brainer. They're going to invest because new technology will always give them the edge. For most other organizations, they need to look at, what that value equation is going to be. And, if it's relatively low risk, they need to look at the value they're generating.
So, in what occasion do you think they should not think about AI?
I don't think there's any exception.
Okay.
I think it's a paradigm shift,
yeah.
and every organization needs to be involved in AI.
Yeah.
Sector agnostic.
Yes.
Yeah. Any sector.
Every sector, unless they're just carving wood.
Or cutting hair.
Oh.
So in that,
So Robert is a strong proponent of AI.
Yes.
Excellent. AI ambassador. That's good.
okay, let's any C-suits, right? They have three big problems. One is like they always think about what I have seen basically by interacting with C-suits in my technology consulting career. So we used to build a lot of SaaS products for mid-market companies to compete and grow with the larger companies, some unfair advantage through SaaS products. So now what we are currently doing is we think SaaS as an infrastructure and AI as a user interface for some elements of building AI based custom application development side. But I've seen the three we call it as a Trinity triangle, where the one corner of the triangle is how I can reduce my operating expense. The second one is how I can increase my net profits, and third one is how I can expand my market share. So any C-suits, when they think about AI, which one of this they need to focus, or two or all three they need to focus on where they can include AI. It's on reducing the operating expense or increasing net profit or expanding market share, because these all connected to technology investments, right? So how advanced they are.
Yes, all three.
All three simultaneously. So if they want to
Or at least on operating expense to begin. So if we talk about low maturity, move from low maturity to high maturity, which is, with AI, that's essentially what you're doing. The first stage will be operating expense, because then you're introducing capital efficiency into the business. So you're then able to reinvest in the sort of forward evolution of AI. So operating expense, focus on that first, then move on to, then you need to understand market share. What markets do you want to be in? Essentially it comes down to where do you want to win, and how do you get to where you want to win with the technology. So market share and profitability. So I think focus on those markets, high value markets.
Since you are a comb-shaped consultant, one is the strategic side, another is finance side, as well as the technology side as well. I think I should post this question to you, which is because the convergence of all three in So when someone wanted to go for build up AI strategy, what type of consultant they need to work with in terms of what are the skill set they need to look for a consultant who have more domain expertise, or someone who has a cross domain expertise, because most of the C-suits are highly depend on their own self-learning, thought leadership, as well as onboarding some big four consultants to do that transformation for them. So do you really think they need to self-educate themselves because they got access to all the information now, in the form of Gen AI? They need to go that route to take a decision to learn, or they need to really have a consultant in place. So how they can find the right consultants?
I think the only, so from personal experience, the only way you can actually be effective and deliver a result is actually being being immersed in the, and have an understanding of what it is you're working with. So I think everyone needs to have a good understanding of AI. It's like you need to speak the language to some extent. It's like if I speak to someone in finance, that's the language of finance. If I'm with someone in technology, it's the language of technology. AI is a new language that we need to, I think, there's a misconception with AI, going back to the misconception of AI. I think AI is going to radically change how we all work, in the sense that previously, you need people who are going to drive solutions. And I think now everyone has the opportunity to drive solutions. And if you're driving a solution, you need to have a degree of learning behind that. So I think, C-suite leaders, everyone in the organization needs to have a grasp of AI to some extent, so they can initiate the solutioning process.
So how about a non-technical person? Like, for example, so we talk technical. I mean, Bhaskar sir is from non-technical background, so he put his own effort to come to this technical side of thing, right? So he's learning more techno. He also code. How functionally it all works, right? And also he's learning AI as well right now. Yeah.
Maybe you mean the non-technical founders
Yeah, exactly.
of
Non-technical
mid-market
founders.
companies.
But I think the point is, now everyone has an opportunity to apply ideas and create solutions. If you choose, it's not necessarily a choice. If you choose not to do that and not to learn AI, then there are probably going to be very few opportunities for you in the future, because AI is going to move. It's changing the dimensions of business and where business is going to operate in the future. And if you're working in a process as a non-technical person, yes, you can wait for a change manager or a change leader to come along and say, okay, I'm going to embed AI in your workflow. But even then, you need to be able to say, well, actually, you've had that conversation with the person, with the change leader. They've then taken your requirements, or they've tried to understand how you interact with the process and what the current workflow is, and they're trying to transition you to a new workflow. As a non-technical person, you need to understand to some degree what AI is and how that's going to change how you work.
Yeah.
So you need to have an understanding.
So we need to learn AI with the help of AI.
Yes.
So, in your opinion, in that case, AI strategy decisions made at the C-suite level should parallelly start some level of AI awareness and learning programs for the people bottom up or across the organization.
Across the organization,
yeah.
Because I think quite often that's where AI fails, because ultimately you have to embed AI in the workflow. And
I think that's significant learning working within the health sector. So obviously the technology can do a lot more things.
Yes.
But question here is how well the technology fits into the existing workflow. So that is where the biggest constraint in terms of implementing any kind of big technology ideas within the healthcare also. And obviously the culture and as well as individual preferences towards technology, that's another dimension altogether. And then also sometimes some technical teams, they lack that kind of unique constraints and complexities of a particular system or a particular business vertical.
Yes.
And this is where that system thinking
Yes.
plays a big role in terms of where people can see how this is going to interact with the various elements of the stakeholders at various levels and also various IT systems. And then from the governance side and also risk and risk mitigation and liabilities. And there are so many closely linked domains. So this is where sometimes within the healthcare, what I observed is there's a lot of risk averseness and also delays in making those kind of decisions that could potentially provide more value, but at the same time, kind of analyzing all these closely linked elements and domains, and then coming to a point where what is the acceptable trade-off
Yes.
of these various fields interacting with the technology. So that is a kind of significant factor in healthcare, definitely. Yeah.
Generally, do you really think AI is giving a big leverage and advantage to any super ambitious C-suits, of any mid-market company to go larger by being AI native, because they are quite leaner compared to larger organizations. So those who are reluctant to change sometimes, or the change itself takes with a big process, like 6 months to 1 year to strategically get something approved. So compared to mid market, do you really think any super ambitious mid market can compete with larger organization by optimizing the process using AI and service delivery?
I think so. It comes back to how and where you introduce AI and the effectiveness in scaling. So I think the benefit for a mid-market company is, you're not already at scale. So, and typically they are very focused in a particular sector or subsector that they know very well. So application of AI gives you much greater impact and scope for evolving the business over time. So I come back to this idea of, being forward thinking and having a roadmap for the future, because what the roadmap gives you, if you, as a C-suite executive, many of them will have a strategic plan, but the whole point is, you need to have an AI strategy and a roadmap for AI to underpin the bets that you're making strategically from the boardroom. So, and that's what we were saying earlier, that there's this misalignment between having the strategic plan and the strategic roadmap and an AI strategy. I think, if you start with this perception that AI is going to introduce significant risk to your business, then you're going to be less receptive to the idea of introducing AI. But I think if you frame your AI strategy correctly, you can actually reduce a lot of those risks by ensuring you have the right capabilities and the right delivery system for AI. You need to invest in effect, it's a delivery system. It's, you have, MLOps integrated with your continuous integration process. You need to start making those changes. You need to have that capability in the technology domain so that you then have a consistent and repeatable process that you have confidence in to deliver AI over time. And then that will underpin your AI strategy. And you can, with an AI roadmap, you can determine what your levels of maturity are going to be and what capabilities you're going to position to support the business in the future. And I think that's the key, really. So it's really thinking through that whole process and being forward thinking. And over time, as you learn to use and deploy AI, you will actually build knowledge and understanding, and then it becomes, a mature capability in the business. And then the uncertainty and the risk that you associate with AI today, but possibly, is then, over time you're adapting and using AI, so it then becomes it just becomes part of the business fabric.
In the last few months, we've been, myself and Karthik especially, so we've been doing some technology due diligence for our private equity to make their investments decisions on the manufacturing utility companies. The primary driver of the companies is not digital, but but when we added that AI maturity aspect as one of the key element to think about the future, whether the AI investment, what stage they're in the bottom of the funnel, already made it, and that's not delivering value, or they made it and the value is not realized yet, and they are thinking about making it. So when I was doing my technical due diligence, sometimes the questions what is running in this CEO's mind is whether they ask me a straight question. So whether if the AI maturity is less, or if the AI has been implemented and not delivering, creating value, there are two sets of segments of people, C-suites. So they're asking me a question, Ramesh, can you please tell us whether we can start thinking about AI on the customer touch points or business operations, improving the business efficiency, operations efficiency, or thinking about building some custom solutions with creating a new business model, keeping this aside, completely AI native. So how do you think they can arrive at this decision? Because this set of audience, either they implemented AI in a different strategic way and value is not created, or the resources are not adopting to the AI. Another thing is they are thinking about AI. So I repeat this again, where they can focus more on customer touch points or improving operations efficiency with AI, or building a innovative new AI based business model or products to scale. What do you think?